everyone. How's everybody doing? Awesome. Everybody, thank you for having me. I always love being a part of the Ruby community, so I'm super psyched about being here with you all today. And today we're going to talk about unlearning, the challenge of change. All right? So hopefully you've had your coffee because I'm going to break your brain a little bit. All right? So we're going to do an exercise together. Looks like this. All right? Everybody see that? So we're going to look up at the top left-hand corner, and we're going to look at where that word is placed, and we're going to say the correct directional word for where that word is placed. So what should that say? Up, correct? Up. Okay, so we're going to read together going across, all right? And we're going to read all the way through, and if you stumble, high-five yourself or your partner. It's all good. It's just a game, people, all right? All right, so again, we're going to start at the beginning on the count of 3. And again, what word should that one be? Up. Okay, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Up, down, up, left, right.
Up, down, up, left, right. Up,
Ooh.
down, up, left, right, up.
Oh, yeah. Whoop, whoop. Some people had some good coffee because that was pretty phenomenal. Very good. How many of you messed up a little but left it to the louder voices to pick it up where you left off? Teamwork! Good job, everyone. All right. So our environment in which we live and work demands us to unlearn so that we can shift and make room for something new. So I'm Jessie Shternshus. I'm the owner of the Improv Effect. I started my company 11 years ago already, and I help people worldwide with communication, collaboration, and creative problem solving. And I actually got a lot of my start in my career was in the Ruby community. One of my first corporate jobs was working with HashRocket in Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm from. And that's where I got introduced into the Ruby community and really just loved it. It was a warm feeling, very friendly, very edgy, kind of pushing the envelope. And I felt like, these are my people. I like these people. But I've had a really long unlearning journey in general in terms of my work history. I was a babysitter. Anybody a babysitter when they were little? Yep. I unlearned that. I have my own kids, so I don't know. Maybe I'm still a babysitter. Probably. All right. And after that, I even worked at Disney. I was a costume character. Talk about unlearning when you're in like a fuzzy thing with like slits for eyes, and you can barely see. You have no peripheral vision. You have paws for hands, and they expect you to sign things. That's cute. So I unlearned that as well. I was a teacher for several years and then started my company, and that's where I am today. So it's a long unlearning journey, but it's been a lot of fun. This summer, I had the opportunity to go to Agile, Australia, and I loved it. I was nervous to be so far away from my family, but I tried to embrace it, be present where I was. I had a couple of friends from the States that were there with me, and at night, we took an Uber to the speaker dinner. And as I'm getting in the car, you know, we're all piling in, and there was 4 of us, so somebody had to sit up front. So my friend Sarah goes to the door, and she opens the door, and the Uber driver's like, ah! And she's like, ah! And then she slams the door back, and then she's like, sorry. And he goes, did you want to drive? And she's like, no! And so clearly we hadn't unlearned anything, because she about sat on the driver. He thought he was being held up. It wasn't cute at all. We definitely made like another terrible American impression overseas. Good job. You're welcome. All right. So shift is a way of life, right? It's constant. We're constantly having to shift and make room for something new. So what is unlearning then? So when we learn, we add new skills or knowledge to what we already know. And when we unlearn, we step outside of our mental model in order to discard something that no longer makes sense to make room for that something new. And I kind of like to think about it like this. Maybe all along, things have been working, but that at some point you feel like you're shoving that peg, that square, into the round hole, and you're like, this worked yesterday. It even worked this morning, and now it's broken. And so you have to look for something else. So in my mind, I kind of picture it like you then need to discard that and find something new. And there's 3 levels of unlearning. It happens on an individual level, it happens on a team or a group level, and it also happens at the organizational level. And there are 2 types of unlearning situations, okay? Those 2 types are one where no habits are formed at all, and the other where habits are formed. So for instance, if you gave me a book about rocket science, I might learn something, but trust me, I wouldn't have a very hard time letting go of that. However, if you told me not to put on my seatbelt anymore, even though I'm a child of the 80s, where we did a lot of things that are really strange, like it turns out like parents were like, you don't need a car seat, just buckle up and hope you live. But I buckled up, at least, thanks Mom and Dad. So I do that without thinking, right? Last year we had a hurricane in Florida where I'm from, and we were kind of all huddled in the hallway, and we lost electricity and things like that, and I remember going through to get stuff around the house, and I kept flipping the switch. So I had the knowledge that we had lost our electricity, but the habit won, right? So I was constantly like going in, flipping off, being done, and then flipping back. And then by the time I did that, we had electricity already because we were on the same grid as a fire station, which is, we were winners in this situation. It worked out well. So how many of you have heard the saying, it's just like riding a bike? Have you heard that saying? So I want to show you this video about riding a bike, but maybe not one you've ever ridden before. So let's look at this.
Hey, it's me, Destin. Welcome back to Smarter Every Day. You've heard people say it's just like riding a bike, meaning it's really easy and you can't forget how to do it, right? But I did something. I did something that damaged my mind. It happened on the streets of Amsterdam, and I got really scared, honestly. I can't ride a bike like you can anymore. Before I show you the video of what happened, I need to tell you the backstory. Like many 6-year-olds with a MacGyver mullet, I learned how to ride a bike when I was really young. I had learned a life skill and I was really proud of it. Everything changed though when my friend Barney called me 25 years later. Where I work, the welders are geniuses and they like to play jokes on the engineers. He had a challenge for me. He had built a special bicycle and he wanted me to try to ride it. He had only changed one thing. When you turn the handlebar to the left, the wheel goes to the right. When you turn it to the right, the wheel goes to the left. I thought this would be easy, so I hopped on the bike ready to demonstrate how quickly I could conquer this.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Justin Sandlin. First attempt riding the bicycle.
All right. So the faster I go, the better.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. You can see that I'm laughing, but I'm actually really frustrated. In this moment, I had a really deep revelation. My thinking was in a rut. This bike revealed a very deep truth to me. I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding. Therefore, knowledge is not understanding. Look, I know what you're probably thinking. Destin's probably just an uncoordinated engineer and can't do it. But that's not the case at all. The algorithm that's associated with riding a bike in your brain is just that complicated. Think about it. Downwards force on the pedals, leaning your whole body, pulling and pushing the handlebars, gyroscopic precession in the wheels, every single force is part of this algorithm. And if you change any one part, it affects the entire control system.
Yeah.
I do not make definitive statements that often, but I'm telling you right now, you cannot ride this bicycle. You might think you can, but you can't. I know this because I'm often asked to speak at universities and conferences and I take the bike with me. It's always the same. People think they're going to try some trick or they're just going to power through it. It doesn't work. Your brain cannot handle this. For instance, this guy, I offered him $200 just to ride this bike 10 feet across the stage. Everybody thought he could do it.
No, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. So, this way. Okay. All right, just a second. All right, so, whenever you're ready. Yeah. Wait. No, you have to keep your feet on. Dude, all right, give it a go. Just give it a go. Wait. Like, you gotta start rolling at least. Ready, go. And go. Oh, go! All right, back up. Okay, wait. Keep your feet on the pedal. Go. Go right off. Just keep your feet on the pedals. Handles on. Yeah, come on. All right, one more time. Okay.
once you have a rigid way of thinking in your head, sometimes you cannot change that, even if you want to. So here's what I did. It was a personal challenge. I stayed out here in this driveway and I practiced about 5 minutes every day. My neighbors made fun of me. I had many wrecks, but after 8 months, this happened. One day I couldn't ride the bike and the next day I could. It was like I could feel some kind of pathway in my brain that was now unlocked. It was really weird though. It's like there's this trail in my brain, but if I wasn't paying close enough attention to it, my brain would easily lose that neural path and jump back onto the old road it was more familiar with. Any small distractions at all, like a cell phone ringing in my pocket, would instantly throw my brain back to the old control algorithm and I would wreck, but at least I could ride it. My son is the closest person to me genetically, and he's been riding a normal bike for 3 years. That's over half his life. I wanted to know how long it would take him to learn how to ride a backwards bike, so I told him if he learned how to ride a backwards bike, he could go with me to Australia and meet a real astronaut. Are you gonna give up?
No.
Go ahead. This is how it starts. Look at this. This is such a big deal. Get up, you got it. Did you see his brain get it?
Okay. Sounds like my babysitter when I was growing up. So, why do we think the child, his son, that he was treating so nicely, Dad of the Year, was able to figure out how to ride his bike in 3 weeks? Why is that? Yeah. So it's easier for him to unlearn, right? So when we're children, we haven't necessarily been told what's right or wrong, so we don't know to stay in one lane. We can kind of experiment. We're naturally more curious. We're constantly asking why. And all of those things lead us to being better at letting go of things. We're like a sponge of knowledge, but we don't have one way telling us right or wrong. When I was researching and coming up with things that I wanted to share in the talk, it was really interesting. I was reading about Einstein, and what I found out is that the things that he's most famous for and are the most profound actually happened very early in his career. So even though he became deeply knowledgeable, it still didn't mean the things that he came up with were the most profound. And I thought this was kind of interesting. So yesterday, Sarang gave a really wonderful keynote, and she talked about newbies, right? And what newbies go through and what it's like to be there and how there is a place for them. And it's true. I think that every newbie, think of the newbie almost like the child that picks up something really fast. Because they haven't done it before, they're bringing a perspective that is extremely valuable, and we shouldn't second guess that. That perspective is really, really important. I often have people say to me, well, I want to be a speaker, but I'm not an expert yet. I have nothing to share. That's not true. You actually have something really interesting to share that maybe none of us had thought about because we haven't been where you've been for a long time. When I had students in improv, I typically would have 2 different types of students that would come. So some were students that had done improv before, been in other troupes and been performers before, and then I would have brand new people. Well, what I would find out is as we're forming a new team, just like you might form a team at work, you tend to try to sort of let go of your old ways, and you have sort of a new language that you have a new way of doing things with everyone. Well, the people that were new to improv had a much easier time, and their curve of learning was much shorter than the ones who had done improv before because they had different habits than our team needed to be really stellar and perform. I love this quote. So in the beginner's mind, it skipped. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, and in the expert's mind, there are few. Right? And this is about, again, being told over and over again, there's one way or there's only this way that you could do something, and we have to figure out how to be more curious. So I'd like to play a little game. Here's how it goes. You're just going to turn to the person next to you, and we're going to play this game called Space Numbers. How it works is person A, or 1, is going to draw numbers in space. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, makes sense? And you're going to go till 10. You're not going to say the numbers. Person 2 is going to mirror you. So they're going to be doing your numbers just mirrored, okay? So you're going to see a mirror going on together. Then as soon as you get to 10, I'd like you to switch so both people get a chance to be tortured, okay? If you will, again, you don't have to say really anything other than I'll be person A to start, and then when we get to 10, we'll switch. So give it a shot. Everybody do your space numbers. Everybody finish? Yeah, thumbs up. All right. Excellent. How many of you want to play space numbers in the hallway after this? So how many of you felt like you did it perfect? Yes. How many of you had a hard time doing the number 4 backwards? Was it all downhill from there? Yay! All right. So in all seriousness, this is a game about empathy. What does it feel like for somebody to have to do something different and replace it with something they haven't done before? Take it away, and physically, in this case, do it differently. Think about how hard it is to draw the number 4 backwards, and then think about the empathy you need to have when somebody new is coming into a team, or you're trying to lead a change, to do a process or a project in a different way. And remember what it was like to have to do the 4 backwards, and have some patience with yourself and with each other. So what's happening in your brain when you're unlearning? So as we're learning, we're forming these deep neural pathways in the part of our brain called the basal ganglia. And we're doing things over and over again, and they form these paths. I like to think of it as like a big grassy field. So if our brain is a big grassy field, okay, and I'm like walking with grass, probably for me, the grass is probably up to here, but if you're taller, it's probably like more like realistically here, okay? And I'm going from point A to point B and back to point A. So I'm walking through the grass, I'm like, whoa, okay, and I'm going back and forth. So what's happening to the grass as I keep doing the same thing over and over again? What happens to the grass? Smushed, right? It's down. So all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, you want me to do this thing? Okay. So I'm going through the grass this way. Has the grass grown back yet over here? For a long time, it's still a nice path that you smush down in that field, right? This is kind of what's happening in your brain, right? It doesn't happen overnight that all of a sudden you're like, goodbye, learning. I'm going to unlearn you and go this way, right? There's still a very clear path, all right? The unlearning curve is long, but it is necessary because we don't want to end up like these guys, right? So like they were loving racing for a long time, right? The tortoise and the hare, they raced and the same, every day they got out, you know, and the turtle thought he was going to lose and then he won, but they weren't paying attention to that things were happening around them. There was moving trucks going by, and there's a road where there used to be a grassy knoll. And so we don't want to be those roadkill people, animals. We don't want to be them, all right? Look up. Notice there's a moving truck. See what's going on around you. And don't be so hyper-focused on something that you're missing all the change going on around you. So I want to get personal for a second. A couple of years ago, I was asked to work with some of the students at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind, which actually Ro, who used to work at Hash Rocket, his wife worked there, and so she recommended me to them. So that's part of the Ruby community, back to the Ruby community again. So they called me and they said, we'd like you to work with our visually impaired students, teaching them using improv and other experiential methods to help them get ready for work, for interviewing for a job, for being on the job the first day. And it made me super nervous, to be honest. One, I thought, there's no way this would work. I thought that improv really had to be done with sight. I didn't think that you would be able to do it and do it well if you couldn't see, because so much of it is about contact, like eye contact and reading body language. And so I was kind of stuck. I was like, I don't know that this is going to work. I think the bigger problem actually was that I was super scared to work with an entire population of visually impaired students because I hadn't done it before. And so I was ignorant. I wasn't really sure, like, would I say something offensive? And I didn't want to do that. And so just this inner critic just kept saying all the reasons why this wasn't going to work, right? And it almost prevented me from doing it. Luckily, I don't know why, but I decided, maybe this is exactly what you should do. Maybe this risk, this thing that you fear should be. So I started to kind of take apart what I had learned and said, so if I need to teach them improv and the students don't have sight, how can I do that? And so I started to create a curriculum that didn't rely on sight. And it turns out to be one of the best jobs I've ever had. I mean, the students were remarkable. They taught me a ton. I loved it. We worked with them for multiple years. I even sent other teachers of mine to work with them, and they felt the same way. So thank goodness I didn't run away from that fear or bias that something I thought wouldn't work would stop me from learning myself. So let's take a self-awareness selfie and examine our own beliefs, okay? So I want you to ask yourself these questions, please. Do I need to think, behave, or do something in a new way? Is there previous learning that's preventing me from thinking, behaving, or doing things in new ways? Like working at the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind, yeah? Is what I'm trying to learn a threat or a challenge to my identity or how I see myself or how I see the world? Would trying harder give me the results that I'm looking for, or might it create more entrenchment? So the other day, I was on Twitter, and I was reading all of Alan Cooper's tweets that were just unbelievable. I think somebody saved them, thank goodness, because they were just incredible. But this one caught my attention. There's no mind harder to change than one that has been hugely rewarded for not changing, right? So you need to think about that. If this old way has worked for you and you keep being rewarded for it, it's really hard to convince yourself there's a reason why you need to unlearn and change. Unlearning is all around us, right? It's in everything that we do. How many of you are familiar with this sign? Yes? Okay. And what have we been told about the sign that the arrow is pointing to? Is that the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom? Women's? Yes. And how do we know? She has the dress, right. The cape. Oh, yeah. All right. So my friend Tanya Katan, who is an amazing person and speaker, she worked for Axosoft and was asked to go out into the world and find something that people see all the time, but maybe they don't necessarily think about questioning it, and get us to see it differently. And so the old tale goes that she had a pee, and she's walking around, and she sees, Epiphany, the bathroom sign, right? And she sees it, and she says, what if that was never a dress? What if it was a cape, right? And it's just a brilliant way of thinking about, like, why do we just take this thing for granted? Why do we just accept? What if this cape was here the whole time, but we never questioned it? We never thought what else it could be. And she started a really cool women's movement around this. So I challenge you the next time you have to use the facilities to see if you can't unsee the cape. She did a really good job of getting that to stick with us. So let's look at this one. You tell me. I'm going to go juggler. What about this? Anybody, any ideas what you think this might be besides the attack of the vending machine? What else could it be? What else could it be? Rock climbing, yes, a very rectangular rock. Yes. What else could it be? Dancing what? Dancing with it. We're not going to name what it is, but we all know you're dancing with it. What else? What? This side up went wrong? Totally, it did. That's correct. And over there I heard somebody. Lowering the ramp, right, by hand, right. So we're just going to go ahead and lower the ramp real quick before you come across the bridge. That's why it takes so long when the bridge comes down. Any other things it could be? Say that again? Yes, I find myself in that situation all the time, opening the door poorly. I'm like, oh, that was a pretty poor opening of the door, Jessie. Let's start over. Let's unlearn that and pretend it never happened. Any other ideas? Yeah. He's struggling with the bookcase. He's like, there's too many Harry Potter books in here, and it's like, Yeah, one more.
Giant man tipping over a skyscraper.
Giant man tipping over skyscraper. See, that was in my blind spot because I have no idea what it feels like to be giant or a man, so I would have never thought about it. All right. What about this one? What could this be?
Hot spring.
Hot springs. What else? What? Bacon. 3 bacons getting ready to run a race. What else could it be? Eels. Eels doing what? What are they doing? Synchronized swimming. Duh. That one was not in my blind spot. I've seen a lot of that in my childhood. What else? Line dancing with very noodly-like people. Yeah. Anything else? A snake? Yeah, a snake talking. He's like, hey, snakes, how's it going? Fancy seeing you here, snaky snakes. Anything else? Hot pizza. Yes. Let's hope we see this sign later today. We're all going to see it differently, even though we've probably never, ever seen it before. The point is that it's easy to name things when you've never put them in context, right? When you've never seen it before, there's nothing to let go of, so it's easier to get creative and think about all the possibilities. But when it's the bathroom sign that you've seen forever, it's harder to unlearn that and make room for the cape. So what are unlearning organizations? What do you think that might be? So an organization that cannot unlearn will never become a learning organization. Oftentimes, when I'm working in companies, we're getting people that are paralyzed. Maybe they're going from waterfall to agile. Maybe they're learning a new programming language. Maybe they're trying to work in a very different way. And they wonder why people can't move forward. It's because they're skipping this huge step. They're ignoring that they need to unlearn before they move forward. And transformation is not a transactional activity. It's ongoing, and it changes over time, from our friend Dan North. Yeah, so when I get calls at the Improv Effect and they're like, we're having a lot of problems with our entire organization, and you know, everybody's not getting along, and nobody will talk to each other. We can't retain our people, and we've got an offsite in 2 hours. Could you help us with that? I'm like, well, no. So, you know, I can't make miracles happen. I could get you started, but it takes practice, right? That transformation definitely couldn't happen in an offsite in 2 hours. Good luck to you. And mental models eventually become the company values. When you're in a startup and you're kind of in that maybe 8 to 15, 8 to 25, if you're lucky, people, the mental models of the founders start to become the culture and the values. At some point, it can blow up in your face if A, you haven't named it, and B, it no longer works. So you need to unpack what those things are. What are those behaviors? How do we do things? Will it still work or not? Because they're deeply ingrained in everybody who's come into the business. And as you grow, that is more challenging, more and more challenging as each person comes in. And change is hard because you're constantly like playing this game of tug of war. So you've got like, this is how I do it on this side, and try something new, right? And it doesn't go anywhere when everybody's feeling like that. What about these companies, right? These are companies that were great in their heyday, you know, and now there's no Jeffrey Giraffe. That's upsetting, you know? Where's Jeffrey? Actually, I heard they sell them at Walgreens, which is interesting. I don't know how only Jeffrey made it, but none of the other toys. But these were companies that were doing really great things, and then they kind of were like the tortoise and the hare. They didn't look up. They didn't change fast enough. They didn't unlearn fast enough, and so they're no longer with us. So what are some examples of unlearning at work? What are some things you have to unlearn at work? Anybody have some? Or some things you might have to let go of? Anybody get a new laptop where the keyboard's just slightly different than it was before, and you're like, why am I writing gibberish today? Any other ones you can think of? What? Language, yes, exactly. Language, absolutely. Yes, definitely. Right, so if you're bilingual, right, you're like, I'm talking a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? And you're having to like, wait, which language am I using when? Yeah. how could we unlearn the org chart, right? Could we look at the way things are set up and the dynamics of leadership at our company and think about maybe, is there another way we could do this that would work better? Maybe it served us when we were a much smaller company, but now that we're bigger, we need to let go of that and understand that it doesn't work that way. Maybe form new teams or a different leadership team or have a flat organization. We don't want to be this. When I was your age, things were exactly the way they are now. Don't aspire to be Grandpa Caveman, okay? So how do we make shift happen? Here's an awesome acronym for you. All right, here's how we can help our team make changes. First, S, surface the resistance. Then H, hear what they have to say. And by hearing, don't just hear them go blah, 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 but actually like take it in and really hear them. Identify the value for them to change. What's in it for them? Find ways to break down barriers. And then train them with experiential methods day by day. So not just telling them, but let them physically use the whole body and whole mind in order to learn something new. When we try to surface the resistance, which is that first step, think about whether when you're told that you have to do something, if you're very motivated by that. Or what if it's different and you want to do something, right? So if you're leading a team and you're having to do these kinds of changes, really think about what's in it for them. Why would they want to change, and not because you said so, but what would make them motivated to get up every morning and go in the direction or the vision that you have? It's not about what you want, it's about what they want. Unlearning is hard and empathy is required. So go back and think about writing that 4 backwards. You know, it's funny, but it's hard, okay? Think about it. Think about what it was like on your first day and you're walking around and you're hearing a bunch of acronyms. You're like, what is this, right? Like if I was walking around and I heard MRI, I don't think I would relate it to the Ruby community. I'd probably like wonder if I needed to get scanned or something, right? So oftentimes we might come from a different industry and become a developer, right? And so we've named these acronyms something completely different, and so we're thinking about it, and we're having a completely different conversation than the other person. Remember what that's like. Make sure that people understand. I know at this conference in particular, we've been told to make sure that we make a list of these things and tell everybody what they mean so that people don't have to feel silly for asking. They can go to that and they can look it up so that they feel included in the conversation. So you have a piece of paper. So if you will, I'd like you to write one thing that you're struggling on learning. That could be personally or at work. And then you're going to write it down as legibly as you can. And I'd like you to make a paper airplane, but don't throw it, okay? Try your hardest, all right? Take a minute and do that, please. Okay, if you will, everybody, let's do this. If you're on this side, you're gonna aim for anything but somebody's eye over here. And then you all are gonna face this way, but don't throw it yet. Don't get ahead of yourselves, okay? So everybody, if you will, get up the best that you can. Look at the other side of the room. Find your favorite person to hit with an airplane. Okay, so it's gonna get loud, okay? But remember, there's only one of me, so we're gonna do something after we throw it. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna count to 3. If you've got an airplane that lands semi-close to you, you're gonna read that airplane, and then we're gonna have a couple people read what other people wrote. So we don't know who wrote it, but you might see that you hear something that somebody else said that you could relate to in the room, okay? Once you pick up your airplane, or 3, look around. If some person didn't get any, give them at least 1. That'd be nice of you. And then sit down, and then I'll call on people. Make sense? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3! So, if you will, open up your beautiful airplane creation that landed in your lap. And we have a couple of runners with mics, okay? Sarah, Marty, they're gonna, if somebody could stand up and read one. So just, there you go, right there, okay? And we'll read a couple. You can read next if you want, okay?
I have Vim, Escape, and Movement Muscle Memory.
Say that again.
Vim,
Escape. And
Movement Muscle Memory.
And movement muscle memory. Nice.
Going it alone.
Going at it alone.
Going it alone.
Oh, nice, nice. You want to go over there? And then Marty, I promised her that she could go. Okay, over there.
Math.
Amen to that. Not that I ever learned it very well. Okay, yep.
Being lazy.
Being lazy. Yes, nice.
Apologizing for all of my mistakes because everyone makes them.
Ooh, take that in for a second. Can you read that one more time? I just want people to really hear that.
Apologizing for all of my mistakes because everyone makes them.
Yes. Awesome. Yep.
Got sleep.
Unlearn sleep. All right, there are doctors for that. Yep. Great. Anybody else?
I need to unlearn the idea that my self-worth depends upon my income.
Read it one more time so we can take it in.
I need to unlearn the idea that my self-worth depends upon my income.
Nice. Have over there? Yep.
Needing to save and fix all of the things.
Needing to say and fix all of the things. Yep.
How to delegate rather than exert control.
Oh, that's another good one. Nice. Anybody else want to read? Got one over here, I think. I can't see. I'm blind, so.
The one I have is finding excuses.
Ooh, finding excuses. Unlearn finding excuses. I like that.
Object-oriented programming.
Yep.
Controller before action.
Any last ones?
Belief that people can't change.
Believe that people can't change.
That I don't belong in this industry.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I think we're going to, and thank you for sharing, everybody. I thought those were really good. So hopefully you know that you're among friends here and peers. You might have heard something that you didn't write down, but you could relate to. You might have heard something you did write down. And remember, this is a great community of people who are here to help, right? And we have lots of resources to do that. And lots of people kind of innerly struggle with things that they might not feel comfortable telling. Ask how people are doing. Ask how you can help. So what are the rules for getting ahead? First, we need to figure out how to change those habits. We also need to figure out how to change those mindsets, right? How can we let go of that mindset that I don't belong here? We need to bring an outsider's perspective. So last year, I was working for a big food company in their innovation lab, and we were spending a couple of days trying to solve the problem of food waste. And so we explored food waste on its journey from farm to consumer. And we kind of tracked all the different journey places where food gets wasted and how could we make it better. And we were coming up with all these ideas, and then I was walking back to the hotel. Typically, when I'm out of town, I call my family. I have 2 girls. My daughter was 10 at the time. She answered the phone, and she said, "Mommy, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I was working, honey, working on solving the problem of food waste." She's like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Well, think about Thanksgiving. You know, you have all this food, and a lot of times, a lot of it sort of gets thrown out, and it could be used for something else, or maybe we don't need to have as much of that food." And she's like, "You spent like the whole week working on food waste? Why? That's not hard." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Just make it taste like chocolate." I'm like, "Where were you when I needed you?" So she thinks mommy's dumb because she doesn't know what I'm wasting people's time for, solving the problem with food waste. If you just make it taste like chocolate, it wouldn't get wasted. So I shared this with the people in the innovation lab, and although they didn't turn their chicken nuggets into chocolate, which is upsetting, and I'm still trying to fight for that idea, they took something away from it, which was the child's perspective. So at this company, they have an internship program where kids in junior high during the summer get to learn the different things of their business. So what's happening now is the junior high students now get to go to the innovation lab and solve real problems because they saw that there was actually something really important about that point of view that they weren't capturing within their own team. We need curiosity, experimentation, and play. Oops. There's an exercise called escape thinking that you could try if you want with your team, where you can take a piece of paper and you think about one place or problem. So if you were to think about the idea of a restaurant and you wanted to think about how you could make restaurants different, you would write down all the attributes on one side of a restaurant. So a restaurant has chairs, a restaurant has tables, a restaurant has food, menus, servers, blah, 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 and you write those all down. On the other side of the paper, straight across from that attribute, you would change one thing. Well, what if the restaurant did not have tables? What would that restaurant be like, right? And so what you're doing is you're questioning, and you're not changing everything, but even that one little bit of unlearning, that one tiny escape thinking challenge can really change the way that we think about the things that we do. So it's a really simple thing, and you can start with something that's sort of real world but not in your own, so you don't go in sort of a big abyss of problems, and then you can work from that into an actual work problem. This is a really great exercise to try. You can conduct unlearning reviews. So how many of you have feedback 360? You do some sort of review with your company. Yeah, how many of you have done unlearning reviews? Nobody, right? What if when you meet with your peers, management, team, leader, you talk about, well, what did you unlearn in the past few months? What is something you let go of that made room for something new? What if you flipped that question or added it to it and had an unlearning review? What if you used improv, playing space numbers or doing those things? They seem silly, but there's actually a lot of meaning and a lot of points to those things. And because you're using your whole body learning, it typically sticks with you a whole lot longer. And how about practicing it every day? You don't need to do an offsite every single day, but just 2 minutes, 5 minutes here and there, where you're doing a little bit of unlearning, and eventually you're going to let go of that thing that needs to change. If you like the games, this is a book that I wrote. It's called Control Shift, 50 Games for 50 Blanking Days Like Today. Every chapter is a different kind of game that you could use with your team, an experiment, an experiential fun thing with meaning. Also, we started doing workshops. My friend Mark Rickmeyer at Table XI, which is a great Ruby company out of Chicago, we started this thing called the Walk Shop, which is about getting people to get out of their regular environment, unplug, be away, let go and unlearn, be in this beautiful environment, and connect with each other and connect with themselves while walking. So what are you going to unlearn first? It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. DFTU. Don't forget to unlearn. Thank you.